On November 18, 1978, more than 900 Americans lost their lives in a single day. Some were elderly, some were parents, and nearly 300 of them were children. What happened that day? The entire United States, and became one of the darkest. But here's the question that still haunts investigators decades later. How did hundreds of ordinary American citizens willingly follow one man to a place from which almost no one would ever return? Was it blind faith? Was it psychological manipulation? Or was it something even more disturbing? Today, we're uncovering the complete story behind the Jonestown Massacre, story filled with hope, deception, fear, control, and a tragedy that forever changed America. Welcome to Nexora Docs, true crime documentaries, and the darkest stories from American history. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications, because every week we bring you real cases that are more terrifying than fiction. Now, let's go back to where this unbelievable story truly began. Chapter 2. Who was Jim Jones? To understand how the Jonestown tragedy happened, we first need to understand the man behind it all. His name was Jim Jones. In the 1950s, Jones founded a church in Indiana called the People's Temple. At first, he appeared to be everything people admired. He preached racial equality at a time when segregation still divided much of America. He helped feed the poor, cared for the elderly, and welcomed people from every race and background. To many Americans, Jim Jones wasn't just a pastor. He was a symbol of hope. As his reputation grew, so did the number of people willing to follow him. Hundreds and eventually thousands joined the People's Temple, believing they had found a community built on love, equality, and justice. But behind the inspiring sermons and public image, another side of Jim Jones was beginning to emerge. Former members later described a leader who demanded absolute loyalty. Questioning him wasn't encouraged, was treated as betrayal. People who disagreed with him were often publicly humiliated, intimidated, or pressured to stay loyal. Over time, Jones convinced many of his followers that the outside world was filled with hatred, corruption, and powerful enemies who wanted to destroy everything they had built. The more fear he created. By the early 1970s, allegations of financial misconduct, physical abuse, and psychological manipulation began attracting media attention. As scrutiny increased, Jim Jones started looking for a place far away from reporters, law enforcement, and anyone who might challenge his authority. He believed he had found that place, a remote stretch of jungle in the South American country of Guyana. That isolated settlement would soon become known around the world by a single name: Jonestown. In 1977, as investigations and media scrutiny intensified in the United States, Jim Jones made a decision that would change hundreds of lives forever. He encouraged his followers to leave America behind and move to a remote settlement in the jungles of Guyana, a small English-speaking country on the northern coast of South America. Jones described it as a paradise. He promised a peaceful community where people of every race could live together in equality, free from crime, racism, poverty, and what he called the corruption of American society. They sold their homes, gave away their savings, left behind friends and relatives, and trusted Jim Jones with their future. But when they finally arrived in Jonestown, reality was nothing like the promise. Instead of freedom, they found strict control. The tropical heat was exhausting. Food was often scarce. People worked long hours in the fields under constant supervision. Armed guards monitored the compound, and permission was required for almost every aspect of daily life. Leaving wasn't easy. Many members discovered that their passports had been collected shortly after they arrived. Communication with the outside world became extremely limited, and every letter or conversation was carefully monitored. Then came the loudspeakers. Day and night, Jim Jones' voice echoed across the settlement. He delivered endless speeches, political messages, and warnings that the United States was plotting to destroy them. Fear became part of everyday life. Jones convinced his followers that the outside world was their enemy, and that only he could keep them safe. What had once been advertised as a peaceful utopia was slowly transforming into an isolated community where every decision, every movement, and even every thought revolved around one man. And soon, the outside world would begin asking a dangerous question. What was really happening inside Jonestown? Chapter 3. The investigation that changed everything. By late 1978, disturbing reports about Jonestown were reaching the United States. Concerned family members claimed they had lost all contact with their loved ones. Some former members who managed to escape described physical punishment, psychological manipulation, and a community where fear had replaced hope. These allegations caught the attention of U.S. Congressman Leo Ryan. Determined to learn the truth for himself, Ryan organized a fact-finding trip to Guyana. Accompanying him were journalists, photographers, and several concerned relatives of Jonestown members. On November 17, 1978, the delegation arrived at Jonestown. At first, everything appeared normal. Jim Jones welcomed the visitors warmly. Residents smiled, performed music, and assured everyone that they were happy and living peacefully. To the outside world, Jonestown looked exactly as Jones wanted it to. But behind those smiles, something very different was happening. Late that evening, a member secretly handed a note to one of the journalists. It contained only a few desperate words. "Please help us get out of Jonestown." Soon, others quietly approached the delegation, saying they wanted to leave with Congressman Ryan. That single note changed everything. It confirmed the fears that families in America had been expressing for months. The next morning, Ryan agreed to take everyone who wished to leave back to the United States. But Jim Jones viewed their decision as the ultimate betrayal. As the group prepared to leave Jonestown, events were already being set in motion that would lead to one of the darkest days in American history. On the afternoon of November 18, 1978, Congressman Leo Ryan and the group of defectors left Jonestown and headed toward the Port Kaitama airstrip. For many of them, it felt like freedom was finally within reach. After months of isolation, they believed they were only moments away from returning home. But they had no idea their escape was about to turn into a nightmare. As the group prepared to board two small aircraft, a tractor pulling a trailer suddenly drove onto the airstrip. At first, no one thought much of it. Then, armed men stepped off the trailer and opened fire without warning. Panic erupted instantly. People ran for cover. Some dropped to the ground. Others desperately tried to protect their loved ones as bullets tore across the airstrip. The attack lasted only a few minutes, but the damage was devastating. Congressman Leo Ryan was killed, becoming the first sitting member of the U.S. Congress ever murdered while carrying out official duties. Along with Ryan, 4 other people lost their lives, including members of the news media and a former People's Temple member. Several others were seriously wounded, while a handful survived by hiding or pretending to be dead. Back in Jonestown, Jim Jones received word that the attack had taken place. He knew the violence at the airstrip would bring an immediate international response. Within hours, he gathered the entire community for what he called one final meeting. No one could have imagined that the decisions made during those final moments would soon become one of the deadliest tragedies involving American civilians in modern history. Chapter 4. The Final Hours of Jonestown. As night fell over Jonestown on November 18, 1978, hundreds of men, women, and children gathered inside the settlement's central pavilion. Jim Jones addressed the crowd through a microphone. He told his followers that there was no future left for them. According to surviving audio recordings and witness accounts, Jones claimed that U.S. authorities would soon arrive, separate families, and punish everyone who had remained loyal to the People's Temple. He insisted there was only one way to escape, what he called a revolutionary act. Large containers of a flavored drink had been prepared. The drink had been mixed with cyanide and other substances, creating a deadly poison. Parents were instructed to give the mixture to their children first. Within minutes, the poison began taking effect. Confusion spread across the settlement. Some people cried, others prayed, many were terrified. A small number of residents managed to escape into the surrounding jungle. Others survived because they were away from the main gathering or were able to hide until the nightmare was over. By the end of that tragic night, more than 900 people had died, including over 300 children. It remains one of the largest losses of American civilian lives in a single intentional incident before the September 11 attacks. When authorities finally reached Jonestown, they were confronted with a scene unlike anything they had ever witnessed. Rows of lifeless bodies covered the ground. An entire community. And the last chapter, the investigation, legacy, and final thoughts. When Guyanese authorities and U.S. investigators entered Jonestown, they found a scene that stunned the world. More than 900 people had lost their lives. Near the pavilion, investigators discovered the body of Jim Jones. According to the official investigation, he had died from a gunshot wound to the head. Authorities concluded that the wound was most likely although speculation has continued over the years. As investigators searched the settlement, they recovered audio recordings, personal letters, photographs, and thousands of documents. These records helped reconstruct the final hours of Jonestown and revealed how years of psychological manipulation, isolation, fear, and absolute control had led to one of the darkest tragedies in American history. The Jonestown Massacre forever changed the way Americans viewed cults and charismatic leaders. It also reshaped public conversations about psychological coercion, group control, and the warning signs of destructive organizations. Even decades later, one question continues to haunt historians and investigators. How could so many ordinary people place so much trust in one man? Perhaps the answer is a reminder that manipulation rarely begins with fear. It often begins with hope. If you found this documentary informative, consider subscribing to the channel. Every documentary you watch takes many hours of research, fact-checking, writing, editing, and production. Your support motivates us to continue creating high true crime documentaries based on real events. And I'd love to hear from you. Which true crime case or dark chapter in American history would you like us to cover next? Leave your suggestion in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next documentary.